Hello, I'm Lorne Perry. Today we'll be exploring autism. Now the acronym is ASD, so when I say ASD, you'll know that I mean autism. We'll learn about how ASD people were treated or mistreated before 1938, how things changed after 1938, and what we hope the future will hold for autistic people. All the years before 1938, autism did not exist. Well, not officially, but the symptoms were always there. Now, I'd like to tell you something else before we go too much further. Autism is not like any other disability. It's not a mental disease. It is a neurodevelopment disorder. The talent and ability of many ASD people is simply amazing. All autistic people can improve with love and care, so don't forget that. So, the symptoms were there, but the name autism was not. So the sad thing was, when the symptoms showed up, the medical world reported with labels like dementia, Down syndrome, Alzheimer's, things like that. That's what they called those symptoms. They didn't know what autism was, so they put something like that on them. And sometimes they would use things like crazy. They didn't use the word crazy, they used the word insanity. And when that was used, the autism person might be put in an asylum for the rest of his life, him or her. All these labels could mean being locked up in an institution for life. The fact is that for all those years, the labels and diagnoses were wrong, and the autistic people were treated horribly. Now, since 1938, researchers are continually discovering more about autism every day. It all began really in 1933 when Donald Triplett was born. And 5 years later, he was taken to Baltimore to be examined by psychiatrist Leo Kanner, who, after extensive examination and careful checking of all available medical texts, decided that the symptoms he found were not included anywhere. So he called the disorder infantile autism. At last, someone living with autism spectrum disorder had been correctly diagnosed, and that someone was Donald Triplett. Now, before Kanner appeared, and when most children started speaking in sentences, Donald would simply mimic a few things that he heard. He was placed in an institution as required by the status quo. However, his parents, Beamon and Mary, would not accept that ruling, and soon he was back home again. That's about the first time I ever heard of that happening. He got out of that institution. Now, he wasn't interested in things like normal kids were. However, he listened, and at 2.5 years old, he sang Christmas carols word for word that he heard his mother sing days before, and in perfect pitch. His parents soon realized that Donald possessed some remarkable skills and talents, and an amazing memory was one of them. The real story began in 1938 when Donald was taken to Baltimore. Page 1 of the history of autism began. Donald went back to his Forest home. That was his home in Forest, Mississippi, USA. He went back home for a life well lived, not in a lonely institution. He lived in the house where he was born, in a town that loved him, small town, 3,000 people. As a teenager, he attended a normal high school and a normal college. with passing grades in French and math. It was a daunting task for him, but with his innate intelligence and hard work, he accomplished a lot. He was popular at school and college and was cheered for his acting ability, amateur acting. In spite of his many symptoms, after graduating, he worked in the Forest Bank, where his amazing math skills were invaluable. He was always friendly with customers. In fact, he was friendly with everyone. Although he was limited in conversations, he could always carry on short chats about the weather, what's going on in the world today, and things like that. For recreation, he drove his Cadillac, drove it to the golf course. His favorite TV show was Wheel of Fortune. His favorite performer was Vanna White. The people of Forest, Mississippi regard Donald as someone very special, and they look after him. I know that he was alive 2 years ago, and he may still be living. If he is, he would be 84 years old. Still autistic, but is an example of how one can improve with hard work, love, and support. People like Donald Triplett, Temple Granton, and thousands of others show that much can be accomplished when love and care are present. People with autism have much to offer, given the chance. They're not all high on the spectrum, but they all can improve. So that's the story of Donald Triplett. He was case number 1 in 1938. What is needed right now is a committee whose duties would be handling all the aspects of setting up proper housing with proper care in proper location for autistic people who need such housing. The committee would be comprised of some autistic people, parents, and welcome home people, and of course, Autism Nova Scotia and the government. They can work efficiently for 1 year and come up with a good plan for housing in Nova Scotia. The cost of the planned structures would be spread over many, many years as the need arises. The sources of cost could be government, parents, when they can afford it, fundraising by those ASD people who are employed, because some of them are very intelligent. They will make some money, so they would be expected to pay some portion. If nothing is done, while more and more people become unable to care for their charges, which the parents are getting to the stage where they cannot. If there's 14,000 autistic people, there are 28,000 parents, and a lot of them are not young. Thousands of ASD people could be homeless over our province in a few years if nothing is done. The situation is one no one would want to see. Usually, politicians think in terms to the next election. This project would take much longer, and costs would be spread over many decades. The plan would proceed, and it is doable. And if you want to help, you can call me. And if you want to call me, you can email me. The address is Perry123, Perry123 at eastlink.ca. And thank you very much.